that overcoat, if you like, and you got another overcoat made of another matter system. So the mind isn't left stranded just in the ether alone. It can exist in a whole number of different matter systems, and it can simply pass from one to the other.
So we could have a whole range of experiences waiting us.
Right.
In different matter systems.
Yes, I think this...
Vibrating at different...
That's right.
At different speeds.
Yes. Which is very much what the mediums say, and people talk to us through mediums from other wavelengths, say precisely this, that they have different experiences in worlds which are similar in some respects to our own, but unlike it in other respects.
And Ron, you quite early on, you were intrigued when you came across phenomena which you had never seen before, yes. Like healing and psychometry and telepathy.
Yes. And
that seemed to whet your appetite to look into. I'm not saying that your new physics was based or stimulated by that, but it fascinated you as a scientist. You wanted to know how they worked, and this does seem to fit in now to your ether or your ether theory, doesn't it?
It was really the other way on. The theory, which started off with gravitation, produced this structured ether as an essential component, and then everybody hears about psychic phenomena, and with the scientific training dismisses them automatically because it's nonsense. But then this theory showed, for instance, that minds could be interconnected through this ether because of this structure. It also showed that a subatomic particle could contain millions of these little tiny networks inside itself. Even this tiny pinhead of the electron we were talking about could contain millions of junctions. So it could contain a memory store. All neural networks are known to have a memory store, and they can learn. And so a little tiny object, part of an atom, could contain a memory store. So I thought, well, I heard about psychometry. This seems to explain it. So it was from the theory was coming out with explanations, which I had automatically dismissed in my earlier life. And I realised then I had to take a closer look at these things, that they could no longer be regarded as ridiculous and be dismissed.
Or paranormal? Or supernatural?
I would say almost every paranormal, every aspect of the paranormal can be explained by physics.
Well, so much for the theory. But what about the facts? And how do we establish a fact with regard to survival of death? I spoke to a man who personally witnessed over 1,500 physical materializations. And after speaking to Tom Harrison, I found myself very convinced that his experiences were valid. Tom, I understand that you've seen something like 1,500 people which we can say have returned from the dead.
That's correct. That's right, Alan. Yes, over the years. Period of what? About 8 years?
Yeah, these people they're actually physical beings. They're actual physical people.
Solid.
Solid people.
Quite solid people. Yeah. Materialised with ectoplasm or cryptoplasm or teleplasm, different names, but it is a solid material. And they're built there and walked out and stood in the middle of the room talking to us, walking round, shaking hands with us. We used to go up and embrace them, and people who we knew, as you would if you met a friend in the room, kiss them. And everybody saw them and everybody shook hands with them.
That's an amazing claim, Tom. Would you describe yourself as a spiritualist?
I was brought up in a spiritualist family, but this phenomena which we're talking about is really not especially linked to spiritualism. It has become linked to spiritualism from years ago, historically, I think, but it isn't anything to do with spiritualism per se. Spiritualism, in effect, is that we live as individuals when we move into the spirit world, which is true. But this phenomena that we get, and meeting these people, we've had guests who are not spiritualists, ordinary people, as I call them, non-spiritualists, who have met these people, talked to them, seen them, heard them. Yes.
So you have absolutely no doubt whatsoever that there's a life after death?
None whatsoever.
And that must have been an incredible experience for you.
Tremendous.
And to have that knowledge inside of you now must be an extraordinary thing.
Well, it makes me what I am, I suppose. It's made me the person I am, knowing that from, well, 1946 to 1954, 55, that period of time, to every week practically, apart from when my mother was in hospital, but every week to be there to meet 4 or 5 people, different people, sometimes the same. Aunt Ag would come, that's my mother's sister who was in spirit. Yes, it meant that I knew, without any doubt, that we lived on, that we do live on as individuals, and we can return, in inverted commas. We don't bring people back. They want to come and talk to us. It's very much a two-way affair, Alan, this business of communication. It isn't that we necessarily want to speak to them more than they want to speak to us. No, no. They want to speak to us. They, particularly those whose relatives probably knew nothing about it.
And these materialized figures, forms, people,
yes,
that you knew,
oh yes,
would talk to you as I'm talking to you now.
Absolutely the same, exactly the same, no difference at all. They wanted to come and talk to us.
I'm intrigued by. There's one picture in here that I believe is of your grandfather.
Yes.
And you were telling me that although you've never actually met him,
correct,
or that you had met him but you didn't remember him because you were too young,
right,
that he actually materialized one day for you,
yeah,
and invited you to stroke his beard.
That's right. Yes, he built a few times actually. Grandad did. That was my mother's father, and I, as you rightly said, I didn't know him as such because my mother was living with her parents when I was born at the end of First World War, and he used to nurse me, but he died when I was about 10 months old, I gather. And when he built, and I went over to meet him, shook his hand, and was delighted to meet my own grandfather, who, I'm talking of, 30 years nearly. I was, what then, 27, 28 years. And he leaned forward and said to me, "Feel my beard, my boy. Feel my beard." And put his hand up like that. And I went up and just felt his beard. Now this is all ectoplasm. The whole...
But it felt like hair, and it
this
felt
was
like a beard.
just like a beard. And as I've always said, I give it a tug, just to make sure it wasn't stuck on. No, it was just part of him. And my mother always said that he was very proud of his beard. He used to wash it regularly, comb it, trim it, and he was very proud. And that was typical of him to say, "Feel my beard, my boy. Feel my beard."
Tom, in your conversations with your, let's call them your spirit friends,
Yes.
Do they ever indicate that there is progress beyond the level that they are now?
Yes.
Yes?
Oh, yes, very. Yes, and Ag particularly used to talk to us about these things. And as I said before, I think she was a medium when she lived here on the earth, a trance medium and a trumpet medium. And she has told us that at her level now, which is, she said, one step ahead of us, she still makes contact as a medium with spirit people who have progressed to another stage. Because it is entirely up to the individual if they wish to stay close to the earth plane or if they wish to progress in the spirit world. The majority of people who want to stay close to the earth plane are those who have family here still. I mean, a mother who dies and leaves her children